I am glad to introduce Suresh Sankaran, CEO of KKCL Consulting LTD. Welcome to Risk Management and Trading Conference. Another year. It's an honor to have you here.
My pleasure. It's always good to be back amongst friends.
Great. Yes, it's an honor to have a friend like you in our conference. And we would like to start by telling us a bit about yourself. We'd love to hear more about your background, your career journey, and any key experiences that have shaped your perspective in the financial markets, particularly in global markets, financial risk, and also technology.
I started life, believe it or not, as a chartered accountant with KPMG. I have worked with HSBC, ABN AMRO, and in America I have worked with Fiserv, the World Bank Group, and then worked for a startup till 2019 before going back to the UK to take up a position with Metro Bank as their head of risk governance. Recently, I moved to the position of CEO with KKCL Consulting Limited, where I am primarily responsible for providing niche consulting services to financial services institutions around the world. In my long career, I've had the luxury of working for only 5 institutions, but 5 distinctly varied, unique institutions, one specializing in technology, one of the best banks in the world, one the biggest multilateral, the World Bank Group. And so it has given me a perspective to understand and assimilate different cultures and to see risk not as a stick to beat organizations, but to ensure that it is a harmonizing way to raise the playing field in such a manner that systemic risk can be eliminated. In this, technology, I believe, plays a huge part. When we started, we were using massive printers and huge mainframes. Now everything can be done on your cell phone. When we started, predictive analysis meant days and years of research. Today it's all available on a pen drive. And so things have changed, they have evolved. But the fundamental concept of banking remains the same. It is, you are there for the betterment of your people. You are there to ensure that you provide advisory services to your customers. Unfortunately, we are moving away from that advisory structure, and that is sad from a risk management perspective.
Why? Because the AI? Do you think we are getting away from that?
See, the term AI is very loosely bandied around. There are certain things AI cannot do.
Of course.
AI cannot tell you what is wrong and what is right. AI can tell you faster ways after you've identified as a human what is wrong. It can tell you faster ways to identify those wrongs. But as to who determines whether it is a right thing or a wrong thing, it can only be a human. AI cannot do that. So we have to be guarded in our use of AI and machine learning. We have to ensure that guardrails are in place so that you only do what is allowed by your board and your senior leadership from a path perspective, and you don't stray from that path. Otherwise, it's very easy for AI to take over your business. And that is frightening.
Sure. Of course. Which are the current trends in risk management that you believe financial institutions should focus on?
Primarily, liquidity. For 3 or 4 years after the pandemic, liquidity had taken a back seat. But last year we saw SVB and Signal Bank failing. And so liquidity is back in the limelight. People have to realize that liquidity cannot be managed in isolation. Liquidity is a function of many risks. If there is a credit problem, the net result is a lack of liquidity. If there is a market problem, the net result is a lack of liquidity. So the end result of all first order risks is liquidity. And therefore, rather than managing liquidity in isolation, you need to manage liquidity in a much more robust way. The second is the area you already highlighted, AI. Every bank wants to get onto the bandwagon of AI. So you need to ensure that this needs to be controlled and harnessed. You can't go using AI for everything. For things where automation is important, AI becomes a very, very good tool. For example, I want to automate my audit. I want to automate my validation process. Brilliant. This is where AI works beautifully. But AI cannot determine what is right and what is wrong. You have to do that determination. The other area I believe which is very, very strongly coming into focus is geopolitical risk. We are seeing Ukraine, we are seeing problems even in the United Kingdom with riots. We are seeing problems in Israel, in the Gaza Strip, in Russia. And these flashpoints mean that business environment is uncertain. And that is not conducive for long-term healthy growth, either from a financial services standpoint or from a customer standpoint.
And how do you manage that in your role?
You have to be one step ahead. You've heard of the term early warning indicator. There were signals before Russia invaded Ukraine, before Israel retaliated to the Hamas attacks. There were indications that these would be there. And so you need to be prepared for it. The only way to guard yourself against the next systemic problem is to be prepared. And you need to ensure that you have enough capital, enough liquidity, and you can forget about margins for the near to medium future, because they are going to be very difficult to come by.
Sure. And then how do global regulatory changes can affect consulting, credit liquidity, as you were saying, the model risks?
When you think in terms of new regulations around risk management, it is easily evident that central banks want to ensure that there is a very tight pathway to harness banks' growths. They want to ensure that risk is used as a stick rather than as a pathway for more logical and sustainable growth. This is an unfortunate state of affairs, because regulation should exist to help business, not to deter from business. So what is happening is, because of new regulations, consulting firms are at an advantage. They are getting good business. New software vendors are coming into the marketplace because new and more complex calculations are being introduced by the regulators. And this basically means that banks are taking on more and more risk. A model risk is one classic example, where you're creating models without really understanding what those models can do. And then you're trying to supplement it with the use of AI or machine learning. And this results in a very haphazard structure. And so regulation must be viewed with caution.
Having said this, how do you see the future of risk management, looking to the next major development in risk management, and how are you preparing for it?
The next big thing is going to be bank conduct with regards to its customers.
Okay.
The next big thing is going to be more controls around the use of derivatives, more controls around the use of collateral, more stringent use cases for trading. And so risk management has its hands full, because trading is bound to increase, treasury activity is bound to increase, OTC derivative trading is bound to increase. And therefore, risk managers are going to be very, very busy in the foreseeable future.
Okay, that's very, very interesting. And with over 34 or more years of experience, what advice would you give to someone aspiring to build a career precisely in risk management?
Keep an open mind. Don't go in with preconceived notions. Not what you see, not all what you see is good, and not all that you don't see is bad. Keep your process around data. There is nothing better than data to give you scientific analysis. And so, whatever you do, make sure that it is backed up with good data. And read. Read from history. I mean, one of the biggest problems with risk management is that people say, what happened in history does not matter. It matters. What happened in 1995 with Barings Bank matters. What happened in 2008 with Lehman Brothers matters. What happens in 2023 with SVB matters. So learn from that history so that you don't repeat the same mistakes going forward.
Great, great advice. Well, finally, given your extensive experience, as we already talked about in the financial markets, particularly in derivatives and risk management, what are your thoughts on the importance of specialized and educational conferences like risk management and trading conference? How do you believe such events can contribute to the development of leaders and professionals in the industry?
You know, I believe I have been part of Riskmatics and the Risk Conference since it started, and even before, when it was a small fledgling operation out of a small room in the other side of Mexico City. I have seen with enormous respect the growth of such an organization. It not only is a beacon in Mexico, it is a beacon for the world. I believe it's the biggest conference of its kind in the world. It's bigger than Risk Minds. It's bigger than Risk Pro. And there is no better example than to bring academics from all over the world to train young risk professionals in the art of trading, in the art of risk management. So what you are doing is an absolute service. The value that this is being brought in is not just restricted to Mexico. This is a Latin American flagship program. I would go so far as to say it's one of the 3 best conferences in the world at this point in time. I believe that it is the biggest simply in terms of size. And this has grown. And that growth is purely attributed to the fact that there is active consumption of what is being offered. What is being offered is not theoretical, it is practical, it is relevant, it is topical, and it is timely. And when you bring in such a diverse group of people, you have networking opportunities, you have career building opportunities, you have learning opportunities. I come here not just to teach, I come here to learn. I mean, at 80, you talked about 34 years of my experience. I'm talking about 54 years of Ed Altman's experience. He was here last year, and what a pleasant joy it is to be with luminaries like him. It's a pleasure to interact with such people, to learn from them, to imbibe from them, and to use that in a practical standpoint within the confines of your own organization. And that, I think, is the biggest endorsement anybody can give to an organization like Riskmatics and this particular conference. Because this conference has evolved from what? 15 people at one time to more than 3,000 people today. Yeah. It just speaks for itself.
I agree with you, and we are so thankful to have you in the team as a family of Riskmatics.
So. It is my pleasure and privilege to be back again.
Thank you so much for coming from London to Mexico City.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.